Thank you very much once again for having me on this session. And I hope and I believe that you're going to learn something from this session. As you've heard from the introduction, blockchain is really one of the most hyped technologies of the decade. For the last 13 years, I mean, the word blockchain has been a buzzword, and it has been really hyped by so many people across the world. That includes governments, includes corporates, and even individuals. They've really hyped it. And it has revolved largely around cryptocurrencies and speculation. So much so that a few years ago, I started writing my second book, actually last year. My second book that it's almost out, by the way. And I came up with an idea, which I call the crypto poison. So the crypto poison is what I refer to as, is what the term I use to refer to the fact that a lot of cryptocurrency speculation has blinded so many people from seeing a number of real use cases of blockchain, so much so that so many people are scamping around cryptocurrency-based use cases and forgetting about a number of other use cases. So even when you go to the market, most case studies that have been implemented at scale are case studies that revolve around financial services. That includes banking and other fintech-based solutions. So today, this is the way I've structured this presentation. I'm just going to start by just sharing with you a few general use cases. Yeah, this is to give you a general idea of the possibilities of where blockchain can be used. And then after that, very quickly, I'm going to move to specific case studies where I'm going to handle also a few case studies. These are real life projects that are already been created, and these are real life solutions that can be used by people. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to start with the most popular use case when I talk about general use cases, which is the digital currencies, or rather cryptocurrencies. So when I talk about cryptocurrencies or digital currencies, I mean, you probably already have heard of Bitcoin. So when I mention Bitcoin, it brings to mind what digital currency or cryptocurrencies are. In the early days of my career, it used to be very difficult for me to explain to anybody what blockchain was without having to mention the word Bitcoin. That was so interesting. One day I had, I was having lunch with a banker in Kenya, a senior banker. And interestingly, this guy asked me, can you explain to me what blockchain is? I think he actually said, can you explain to me what Bitcoin is? Yeah. But sometimes many of them ask for to be explained for Bitcoin simply because, one, they don't know what blockchain is. They don't even have any idea there's a technology called blockchain. Or two, because they think Bitcoin and blockchain is synonymous. It is one and the same thing. Yeah. So I really tried to explain a blockchain, and you've heard of the word the blockchain for dummies. So I tried to explain this term, a Bitcoin, yeah, as though I was explaining to a child. So I really tried. But at the end of it, after the explanation, the gentleman asked me, now, I hope you carried one of the coins, one of the Bitcoins with you, because I want to have a look at it and touch it and have a feel it. And that's when I realized that really I had not done a good job explaining to him what Bitcoin was. So I really went back to the drawing board to really look at how best people can understand what Bitcoin is. Yeah. So since then, I actually stopped explaining Bitcoin to dummies. Yeah. And I started just explaining Bitcoin as it is. Yeah. Because Bitcoin is a concept that if you don't have some knowledge, it becomes very difficult for you to understand. But today, I believe I'm speaking to an audience that already have a foundation, a prerequisite of the fundamentals of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So looking at digital currencies, why is Bitcoin or why is cryptocurrencies the #1 use case of blockchain? The reason is across the world, currencies, national currencies, or rather fiat currencies, and fiat currencies are the currencies that are issued by central banks. These currencies are centralized and are controlled and issued by a central authority, which in many countries is what we call referred to as the central bank or a Federal Reserve. Yeah, in other countries, in India, in Kenya, there is a central bank. Yeah, that is in charge of printing the money. Yeah, they're in charge of also issuing the currency into the economy. Yeah, so the core of the innovation of blockchain was currency. The founder or the creator of Bitcoin, who is known as Satoshi Nakamoto, which is not really his actual name. Satoshi Nakamoto really created Bitcoin with an aim to decentralize access to finances, or with an aim to create a currency that will not be controlled by any government at all. Yeah, and that's how he created Bitcoin. So globally, whether you talk about the US, whether you talk about India, the fact that central banks are the only people who can issue a currency and they are the only people who can print a currency makes it so much centrally controlled. Yeah, and the feeling that this has so many weaknesses then makes the solution of Bitcoin or the solution of blockchain has more capabilities in terms of removing some of the systemic weaknesses within a centralized fiat currency. So having a cryptocurrency means that cryptocurrencies allow for secure and transparent transfer of money without the need for a central authority. So if I'm sending you money, Bitcoin, one Bitcoin, I don't need, this transaction doesn't need to go through a central authority. Yeah, for instance, when you talk about clearing and settlement of finances, whether it's of checks or of any money that is sent, that clearing process depends on a centralized authority, depends on a centralized bank to be able to clear that before that money can reach the person that that is the recipient. So that's why really the solution of digital currency is really key. And later on, I'm gonna, on the real life case studies, I'm gonna handle an example of what we call the central bank digital currencies, which is also a major solution that blockchain brings about. So a little bit faster, another general use case is supply chain management. Blockchain has key features that we talked about last time. Now the key features include the fact that it is decentralized, the fact that it is immutable, yeah, the fact that it is transparent, yeah. So transparent is a key feature, or rather transparency is a key feature that is necessary and is needed by the supply chain industry, yeah. So when you talk about logistics or supply chain management, largely logistical networks or supply chain networks are largely opaque, so that if you are sending a shipment from China, or you're waiting for a shipment of your products from China to India, sometimes it becomes difficult for you to trace, yeah, the actual location, or rather to trace in real time your shipment, or rather the process of also procuring products. How can a supply chain manager, yeah, or rather somebody who is auditing the work that has been done by a supply chain manager, how can he be able to actually verify that the supply chain manager did the procurement in the correct process? Yeah. For instance, most companies have a process where they have they have a list, yeah, a list of suppliers that have already been verified, that have already been vetted. And this list of suppliers is what they are required, the supply chain manager is required to procure any products from, yeah? And this is common, particularly in hotels, where they have a list of suppliers who are supplying food stuff or drinks. So if the supply chain manager then decides to go outside this list, perhaps in an aim to have some gain in that process, maybe to work with maybe a friend of his, so that he can get maybe some kickback in terms of payment or in terms of some benefit for giving that business, then anybody auditing that system can be able to clearly see that such a thing happened, that this manager did not follow the due process of the supply chain process of procuring those goods. So having a clear, a transparent, not opaque, a transparent, yeah, and a traceable and immutable system, yeah, of procurement, or rather of supply chain management, right from this place where you are procuring the product to the place where the product is received. The reason why this is very important, just before I give you two examples, is assume in an hotel, yeah, you procured a certain product or a certain batches of drinks, yeah, and it happens that a number of batches were actually spoiled, and they ended up poisoning your customers, yeah. Now, what will happen if these drinks already were procured from multiple or rather different suppliers? Sometimes it becomes difficult to actually determine which supplier supplied that particular drink that was spoiled. So when you have a properly digitized supply chain management on the blockchain, everything becomes traceable. You can be able to trace the drink that was taken by a customer right from his mouth straight to where it came from the supplier, which means it becomes easy to apportion blame. It becomes easy to ensure accountability and to reduce risks in the entire supply chain management. And now, of course, there are already companies that are using a blockchain in supply chain management. A good example is Walmart, yeah. And I would advise you to really research and expound on this use case where Walmart is using blockchain to track and trace movement of pork from China, already in China. Now, Maersk as well is using blockchain based supply chain management to track their cargo. Then another use case is voting systems. Well, I don't know about India, but in Kenya, and not just in Kenya, including the US and a number of developing countries, elections are always very emotive, yeah, especially when the elections are tightly contested, where you have opponents that are closely contesting in an election. Sometimes the election process is marred with irregularities, where you realize that a particular candidate stuffed ballot boxes with pre-marked ballot papers. Sometimes a candidate has worked with a hacker to mess up with a digital voting system, and this has happened in Kenya sometime in the past, where election managers work with external or other telecommunication companies and data service providers to feed the election system with wrong information and feed an algorithm into the election system, especially in the time of tallying, so that for every if I'm your opponent, for every 10 votes that you get, this algorithm can deduct a number of votes from you, yeah, so that this algorithm keeps me always ahead. And this happens because voting systems are centralized, yeah? And what we agreed last time is that centralized systems have what we call a single point of failure. And when they have a single point of failure, means that you just need to attack a single point in that election system, and it becomes so vulnerable that you can now manipulate data, and you can manipulate transactions within the election system. So how can we decentralize these election systems? So the first thing that we may need to do, and that's also a use case that I'm going to share with you, is it is important as much as possible for countries that want to implement this kind of system to have a blockchain-based digital identity. Yeah, and there's one case study we're going to cover later. A blockchain-based digital identity will really help, yeah, to establish or rather to implement a decentralized voting system. And even without having a blockchain-based digital identity, voting cards can be issued based on the blockchain, where at the point of issuing these voting cards, they can be attached, yeah, to biometrics, yeah, or that happened today. Even in Kenya, biometrics are attached to voting cards. But the problem that happens is it becomes very easy for people to just compromise that system, yeah, because they can just enter data that doesn't exist. Or sometimes what happens is they compromise the system in a way that an individual can vote multiple times. But when it is based on the blockchain, remember the key features of blockchain. It is decentralized, which means decision-making is decentralized. No individual is going to enter that system and just change all the data or just input data as he wants. Yeah, this system is decentralized. Yeah, which means it is going to be difficult. Yeah, for an election official who's already compromised to go into this system and change data without leaving a clear audit trail. Now, that is the key term. When the system is secure and auditable, then it becomes easy to actually audit the entire process and actually determine whether the election was free and fair. And these are systems that has already been used in a number of US elections, not national elections, but state elections, and particularly in certain parliamentary elections. These are small election, in-house elections. They have already implemented a blockchain. And a particular one in Africa is in 2019, Sierra Leone, which is an African country, with the help of a company known as Agora Blockchain. They used a blockchain-based election system in the presidential election, yeah, and that really helped to a great extent to reduce, yeah, the instances of irregularities in that election. Then quickly into digital identity. I did mention digital identity in that part of elections. Now, can you think of it? How many people globally? Yeah, right now the total global population is about 9 billion. Yeah, how many people globally do not have an identity? Yeah, think of it when you go to any bank in India or in Europe or in Kenya, in any part of the world. The first thing that they want you to produce before they can open a bank account for you is what they call KYC, or know your customer. Know your customer details include you providing your national identity, yeah, which can be either your passport in some cases, but mostly is a national identity card. Yeah, in some parts they can accept a national recognized driving license. They'll request you, for instance, in Kenya, they require you to also provide a Kenya Revenue Authority PIN number. That is a tax PIN number. Yeah, and they also require you to provide a passport size photograph of you. Now, these data, banks keep asking for this data every time you go to open an account. The question is, will the banking system ever have a standardized system that do not need to, so that you do not need to provide your ID every time you are opening an account? Why can't they have a shared resource? Or why can't the government provide a shared resource, yeah, in a way that you do not have to all the time provide your ID card? Because the reason why there's a lot of fraudulent activities in the banking industry is because the process of KYC, the process of collecting this data, is sometimes marred with also some irregularities, where I have 2 different ID cards that were issued. I corrupted a government official to provide me two or three government ID cards, where in one ID card I am Benjamin, in another ID card I am Stephen, in another ID card I am Edwin. So having multiple identities, yeah, and you've seen this even in international crime, where you see an individual having multiple passport identities. How is that possible? You can ask yourself that. How is that possible? How can an individual have 3 different passports? The reason why that is possible is because most passport issuance systems are centralized. Yeah, they're built on centralized technologies, which makes it really easy to compromise. If you get a hacker who is sophisticated, they're able to hack it, they're able to get certain details, they're able to collect fingerprints, and they're able to create a fake passport. Yeah, and that's why the black market really thrived a lot, where they were selling a lot of fake passports and all that. Now, a good example of that is South Korea is actually creating a blockchain-based digital identity system for its citizens. This is an announcement they made recently, actually this year. I think it was in November or so. And that means this is possible. This is also being used in some parts of Africa, by the way. There are companies like, non-profit companies like Red Cross and certain UN bodies that are exploring the use of blockchain-based digital identities to provide identity for refugees. Yeah. So refugees, like in Kenya, we have a number of refugees that are moved from Somalia into Kenya. So you realize they are in a certain camp, they do not have Kenya's national ID, and they are in Kenya, but they have identities from Somali. So sometimes it becomes difficult for such people to be included in the financial system. That's why we have low financial inclusion, yeah, in a number of developing countries, because so many people do not have an identity. They don't have a way for them to identify themselves. If we can be able to digitize this, yeah, where the government provide a reliable blockchain-based self-sovereign digital identity, it becomes easy for other companies that rely on digital identity, companies like banks or fintech companies, lending companies, insurance companies. They can all plug into this national digital identity system and be able to onboard users faster, relying on this national-based KYC process. So the list is endless. I mean, I can mention to you several use cases. Actually, in my first book that I wrote in 2018, I talked about blockchain use cases across 14 different industries. Yeah, and that covers the general use cases. The book is right now under review and will probably be available back on Amazon early in the year. But really, my point is the use cases of blockchain are just as many as the use cases of the internet. Yeah, think of anywhere you can use the internet. Blockchain can be used there. We will see blockchain-based decentralized social media platforms, blockchain-based video sharing platforms, blockchain-based metaverses. A number of problems can be solved with the blockchain technology. That makes it have endless capabilities. So quickly, I'm going to really also handle a few case studies, because all these things that I've talked about, I mean, may just be theories. They may just be things that will be talked about from year to year, and nothing is really being done on the ground. Yeah, but I want to tell you that actually there are a number of companies already doing something. Yeah, on the blockchain industry with real solutions. Yeah, whether they have blockchain-based solutions trying to solve different problems across different industries. Trust me, I can give you a number of several use cases, not just use cases, but case studies. Yeah, and these are, some of them are available online. You can be able to explore them. You can be able to learn them. So let me just read this quote from Jack Ma. All of you know Jack Ma, who is the founder of Alibaba and I think AliExpress. So blockchain technology could change our world more than people imagine. Yeah. So interestingly, I captured the last part of this statement where I said, people imagine. People imagine is, I mean, we can think of so many things that blockchain can solve, so many problems that blockchain can solve. But the question that people keep asking, show us where it has solved that problem. Yeah. So you need to show us where has it solved that problem, other than just telling us that it can solve so many problems. So that's what I'm going to capture in the next few minutes. I'm going to start with one of my favorite use cases, yeah, which I think is applicable in Africa and even in developing countries. In Africa, we have so much land mass, yeah, which means agriculture is our number one source of income, yeah, for most households. So we have so many smallholder farmers that are just farming to have some income for their subsistence, yeah, to have some food on the table. Yeah, they're not intending to, some of them are not intending to sell in large scale. Yeah, but now we have also smallholder farmers that are selling some of their produce, yeah, to the national, for instance, if it is cereals, in Kenya, we have what we call National Cereals Board that buys cereals from farmers. It's maize, it's maybe grains, it buys these cereals from farmers and is able also to sell them to other millers. But there are also a number of what we call aggregators, or rather companies in the agribusiness industry who buy from farmers food or farm produce, but many of them delay to pay these farmers. Yeah. So there's a company known as Samba Records. Now, Samba Record is simply leveraging blockchain technology, yeah, to help farmers have some record, have some data, yeah? And data is what farmers need for them to be able to access, one, insurance, and two, and most importantly, financing. Farmers can be able to scale their activities, but they need financing. How can they get financing when they do not have records? They don't have records to show what was their last produce, yeah? How many metric tons did they produce? Or how many kgs of grains did they produce in the last season, yeah? How much did they sell, yeah? How much of their potential produce did they lose to diseases in the farm, yeah? So such data is important for them to be able to have access to insurance and finances. Yeah. So this company leverages a number of AI tools or IoT tools in the agricultural industry. Now, with these tools, they're able to collect data on the soil. They're able to collect data on the common diseases that these crops face. They're able to collect data on the farm produce. For instance, when you talk about if they come to your farm, they can collect data based on, they work with you through the entire system and they guide you on how to collect data and how that data, once collected, can be able to help you yeah, relate with insurance companies, yeah, and also relate with the bank or a microfinance institution, because in Kenya we have certain microfinance institutions that are providing finances for farmers, yeah. But if you do not have data, it becomes difficult for you to access this, yeah. Also, an important element of this solution is the fact that this solution seeks to reduce middlemen in the value chain of these farmers, so that if you are selling a watermelon, yeah, if you're a farmer and you produce watermelon, now for you to get that watermelon to get to the main market, sometimes it has to pass through maybe 3 or 4 people. So by the time it is getting to the market, the price has more than tripled because of the cost of transport and a lot of other, everybody in the middle, in the value chain wants to make profit. But the problem is having this long value chain always makes the farmer ends up always losing, and losing in this aspect. One, they reduced value for their produce. So the person who is buying from them buys at a very low price, yeah, for it, because this guy wants to sell to other members in the chain before it gets to the main market, yeah. Then two, many times the payment delays, yeah. So the farmer already delivered the produce to this person or to this company, they're waiting for payment, and sometimes the payment delays so much and another season has already come, so they're not able really to participate properly in that season, because they're not able to buy the right seeds, they're not able to buy manure and all that. So based on these records, Samba Records also provides data based on which crop you're producing. They're able to provide the right data with regard to diseases, or whether with regard to seeds, with regard to fertilizers and all that. Now, the fact that this entire process is decentralized, yeah, the fact that this entire process is decentralized, and the fact that it is digitized makes it possible to collect data in a way that is reliable using other technology. You can't do this with blockchain alone. You have to rely also on technology like IoT or AI to be able to create a narrative, yeah, that makes it possible for a farmer to have records, a history of its transactions. And I have added the link of Samba Records there. You can check their website and really learn more about what they're doing. Then another solution, which I won't spend so much time on, is BenKiko. BenKiko is a digital bank for the digital economy. That's what they call themselves. But really, interacting with BenKiko, what BenKiko is trying to do is to provide a solution for micropayments for bloggers, virtual assistants, and online jobs. Yeah, right now the digital economy is growing really fast. Yeah, and individuals working in Kenya, based in Kenya, can be working for clients in India, or doing writing jobs or some online jobs for clients in the UK or in America. Yeah, sometimes payments, yeah, using PayPal becomes difficult, because some of these people are young people who do not even have identity, national identity. Some of them are below. In Kenya, you get an ID when you reach age 18. Now, sometimes this guy is 16 and he's doing jobs online, like people are creating content online. He wants to be paid. He wants to receive his payments. How does he receive his payment when he can't open a bank account and he can't use mobile money, because even mobile money requires you to provide a national identity for you to open an M-Pesa account? Yeah. So BenKiko thought of this and created a solution where they've actually tried to scale it to bring in a DAO that makes it possible then to integrate a number of other solutions for content providers, content creators. That includes NFTs, use of NFTs, and be able to receive Bitcoin payments, yeah, or cryptocurrency payments directly into your wallet. And within that same wallet, it becomes very easy for them to convert it into fiat currency and use it for anything they want to use, they want to do within the economy. And I have added the website there for your convenience. Now, another solution also in the same line. Now, I told you most solutions, or rather most case studies that have shown great success, in my view, have been solutions revolving around financial services, financial inclusion. It has been the most hotly debated use case in blockchain because it affects so many people. Not just so many people, but it affects the core of all economies, financial transactions. So this has been a very interesting use case for me. The use of what we call community inclusion currencies. I don't know if I mentioned this in my last presentation to you, but I wanted to really emphasize this. Community inclusion currencies. There is a solution in Kenya, that has been used by Red Cross, and this was implemented early during the COVID-19 period, during the COVID-19 lockdown period. There's sometime in 2020. Now, this solution is called Sarafu. Now, Sarafu is what we call a community inclusion currency, which means it is a currency that is created just to be used within a certain community. For instance, think of any slum in India. Think of any slum or rather an informal settlement, in India or in Africa or in any developing country, Philippines or any developing country in particular. Sometimes it becomes difficult for non-profit organizations that want to support individuals in such settlements to actually send them that support and that support to and have that support reach them without being intermediated by a middleman. Because sometimes you may send the money to Benjamin, you send 100,000, or you send 10,000, or let me say $1,000 to Benjamin, $10,000 to Benjamin, and he's supposed to give $1,000 to each member of the community. Maybe there are about 10. Now, the problem is Benjamin may decide to reduce that number. He may decide to give every member of the community only $500, and I can decide to pocket the other $500. This is a common thing that happens across emerging economies and developing countries, where you receive donor funds, but this donor fund does not reach the end recipient. The end recipient only gets a small percentage of what was meant for him. So the use of Sarafu in Kenya, this is how it works. You actually dial a USSD code, like in this case, you dial *384 *96#, and then it takes you through a process of registration, Now, once you create an account there, you can be able to, anytime you can be able to dial that USSD or that short code. When you dial that short code, you are able to access a list of vendors within that platform that are selling a number of basic needs. For instance, when you open that, when you go to that short code, it provides you with a list of people who are selling, for instance, people who are refilling gas, cooking gas, or people who are selling certain basic utilities like cooking oil. People are selling on retail and on a retail note. People are selling maize flour, or a number of basic needs, bar soap, a number of things that are needed basically for somebody to survive. So these vendors on this list are vendors that accept Sarafu. So if you're a member of that community and I send you 100 Sarafu, which in this case, 1 Sarafu is equivalent to 1 Kenya shilling. If I send you 100 Sarafu, this Sarafu, you can only spend it to buy those basic goods. You cannot go outside that platform to go and use it for another purpose. And you cannot send it to somebody. outside the list of vendors. Yeah, so you cannot go, I want to send this money to somebody else, yeah, other than those who are within this platform. So that makes it possible. And actually Red Cross has implemented this in a place called Mukuru in Nairobi, Kenya, yeah, where they actually gave out, yeah, 60 million Sarafu, yeah, that's about 60 million Kenya shillings, 600,000 US dollar, yeah, that has been traded since the launch of this Sarafu, yeah, within that community. And that has made it possible for Red Cross to directly deposit Sarafu into the wallets of the beneficiaries, and made it possible to donate directly to the people who need it without having to pass through Benjamin, or having to pass through you or through anybody else who is a centralized community leader, yeah, but to help directly the household that needs it. These are technology that was built by a startup called Grassroots Economics, and they have actually scaled this to multiple communities. So different communities, for different communities, they have created different types of community inclusion currencies. Just about 3 more use cases and we're done. Then another very interesting use case for me, which is also in the financial sector, is what we call Cortana Pay. Now, Cortana Pay is a payment solution that leverages blockchain to process payments through USSD code. So a friend of mine a few years ago asked me a question. Now, you're talking, it told me, you're talking about blockchain being a major solution in financial inclusion. But the problem is most people in Africa and in developing economies do not have smartphones. How do they access internet for them to be able to access blockchain? Because you need the internet to access blockchain. How possible is that? How can you be able to transact without being able to access the internet? Then that was a really tough question then, because we hadn't seen a solution that would really be able to make it possible for those who are using feature phones to also access blockchain-based solutions or currencies. Now, Cortana, relying on, or rather building on the Celo blockchain, they have built a solution which they call Cortana Pay. Now, this solution makes it possible for anybody to interact with the blockchain, yeah, without having a smartphone. So by dialing that USSD on a feature phone, you can actually be able to interact with that blockchain, yeah, and be able to actually buy a cryptocurrency within that blockchain, yeah, which is be able to trade, or rather get, or rather be paid within that platform with a stable coin, which is a cryptocurrency. And that they actually use what we call the Celo dollars, the CUSD, yeah, which is a stable coin on the Celo blockchain. Yeah, a stable coin means that it is a cryptocurrency that does not lose value, that in most cases, except where it is algorithmic, it is backed 1-to-1 to the dollar. Yeah, so that the value is equivalent to $1. Yeah, so one Celo is equivalent to $1 US. 1 Celo USD. So this solution is also being used and has experienced a strong backing by a number of nonprofit institutions, not just in Kenya, but across a number of countries across Africa. This solution is being used in refugee camps, yeah, to improve financial inclusion to people who do not have the KYC documentation, people who do not have proper national identity for them to access financial services. This solution has been handy and has helped to make it possible for a number of people to be able to access such financial inclusion or financial services. Yeah, so you are able to trade with this stablecoin, you're able to deposit and withdraw funds. You can withdraw from your crypto account and into M-Pesa. And from M-Pesa, you can be able to withdraw to any other platform that includes mobile banking platforms. And the important thing with this is that you can be able as well to make micropayments. If you are trading within a certain society, you're able to make micropayments. And this is a solution that I think is really scalable. Yeah, and we are going to see a number of others like that. Then a little bit away from the financial solutions, I also was intrigued by this solution of TrueScholar. Now, TrueScholar tries to help learning institutions to establish tamper-proof, transparent, verifiable, immutable credentials. Yeah, I don't know what happens in India, but in Kenya and in most parts of Africa, when you go to look for a job, the employer normally finds it difficult to verify whether your certificate is actually authentic or not. They actually rely on you to be trustworthy to present the right certificate. And in instances where they want to actually verify whether that certificate is authentic, what do? They actually call the institution that issued that certificate. Now, imagine that process. Imagine you have 100 applicants, yeah? And each of them, you have to verify their certificates. And each of them present to you maybe 10 certificates or just 3 certificates, yeah? Or credentials. How do you verify all this? Do you call all these institutions asking, did Benjamin Arunda graduate from your institution? Yeah? How can that happen? So blockchain makes it possible that at the point of issuing the certificates or the credentials, you can be able to issue those credentials on a blockchain-based platform, which then makes it possible for an employer to simply verify that credential by just uploading what the applicant has provided to them. So that if I go to an employer and submit my document, they can simply just upload that document, maybe just scan it, upload it in a platform, a blockchain platform for belonging to the university, and it scans and it scans, and it's able to produce the details of that certificate, yeah, if that platform has the records of that certificate. Now, the problem with centralized or centrally issued certificates and badges and credentials is that it becomes very easy for anybody, yeah, to fake a certificate. In Kenya, there is a street known as River Road. So in River Road, if you wanted to go there, if you wanted to become a PhD holder, or you wanted to become a master's degree holder, you can just go to that street, spend a few hundreds of dollars, and you can be able to graduate, come out of there with a certificate, yeah. And that certificate, there are people who sometimes even practice with those certificates without being known or without being caught, and they practice with those certificates in different industries. There are engineers who are not engineers, doctors who are not doctors. Of course, in many instances, a lot of improvements has happened, especially in professional bodies and institutions that involve professional practice like law, medicine, engineering. Nowadays, in Kenya, there are professional bodies that then verify these certificates. But for a number of courses that do not have professional bodies, it becomes very difficult for the employer to even know who is an authentic and who is not. Yeah. So having such a platform, and this is a platform that I've experienced before. In the early days of my blockchain career, I did a course with in digital currency with the University of Nicosia, just to introduce myself to this, to blockchain. And that was, I think that was 2018. And at the end of that course, they issued me with a certificate based on the blockchain. Yeah. Now, that certificate, if I provide it to anybody, he can just be able to upload it on that platform, and it will give him the details of when I graduated, what I scored, who was my lecturer, yeah, a number of details that really makes it easy for you to verify my credential. So this is also a good solution. And this can be used also for badges, job-based badges, yeah? Whether you are at work, it's the same solution that would be used for digital identity, like passports, that can also be implemented there, because at the core of it is what we call a hash root, yeah? where you ensure that for a university, they have a root, a hash root, which means that every certificate will be hashed, will have a common hash. Each of them will have a common gene, or rather a common hash, yeah? And that common hash will become an identity for them to show that he graduated this year. It was he graduated from a certain batch of students, and therefore that credential can be verified. Then as I wind up, another good use case is a central bank digital currencies. Now, this is going to be one of the most disruptive use cases, by the way, because these are currencies that are now being issued by central banks, being issued by governments. Yeah. Recently, of course, I was tagged by one of your a media entity, I think from India, and it's just sharing an announcement that was made by, is it the Reserve Bank of India or the Central Bank of India? And they're talking about their plan to issue, or rather the issuance of a central bank digital currency. In October last year, Nigeria issued their central bank digital currency. And do you know why they issued theirs? Is because in Nigeria has a population of about 200 million people. And interestingly, most of that population, as at last year, were not included in their financial system. Yeah, so they had low financial inclusion. Yeah, so, and they did not have properly functional mobile money technology or mobile money service. So a number of people in that economy started using and adopting cryptocurrencies. Yeah, and the government saw the pace at which cryptocurrencies were being adopted in Nigeria. The use of Bitcoin was growing so fast, the use of Ethereum and the likes. Yeah, so much that the government felt like they were losing control of the national payment infrastructure or the national payment system. So what did the government say? Then if you can't beat them, you need to join them. So, but of course most governments really can't endorse Bitcoin, but what they can endorse is what they have created by themselves. So then they created a blockchain-based digital currency, which they built on the Hyperledger blockchain. Yeah. And right now, as of last week, as of this week, actually, Nigerian government have reduced the limit of the amount of money that you can withdraw, yeah, from the banks, because they're trying to promote their digital currency. They're trying to promote the use of their blockchain-based e-Naira, yeah. A number of countries that have also implemented this or are implementing includes the US, China, Kenya, Ghana, and India. Kenya is working on a central bank digital currency. We are not sure whether it is what we call a retail central bank digital currency or a wholesale central bank digital currency. Now, an wholesale one is the one that is just used largely for cross-border transactions, yeah? Which means it doesn't replace the commercial bank. It doesn't really bypass the commercial bank in issuance of these currencies. But a retail one is where ordinary citizens or ordinary companies in an economy can be able to open a bank account with a central bank, as opposed to with a commercial bank, so that I can interact directly with the central bank, have a bank account there, receive, be able to transact with the digital currency. Now, the thing with this is governments will have so much control in the financial system. By the time this becomes adopted to a great extent, government will have so much control. Imagine where a government can actually lock money in your wallet, yeah? When you don't support them, or when your political inclination really doesn't please them, then the government, because the government can actually directly control that wallet, it becomes really dangerous. Those are some of the challenges, or some of the limitations that we think as professionals in the blockchain industry will become the limitations of central bank digital currencies, because inherently CBDCs are not entirely decentralized. Yeah, they are issued by central banks, but they are based on the blockchain. So central banks are leveraging blockchain to issue their currencies based on the blockchain. Now, and I think this would be the last one, is the Binance Pay solution. Yeah, so Binance Pay is a simple, borderless, and secure way to send and receive cryptocurrencies from your mobile devices. Yeah, this is an interesting solution. Yeah, and not just the Binance Pay only, but you look also at what do you call it? Visa and MasterCard. They're also in partnership with other institutions providing cryptocurrency cards that make it possible for you to pay using cryptocurrency in a decentralized way. Yeah, so that you just work with your card. You don't need to really trade, because these cards are able to communicate with an exchange and be able to convert the cryptocurrency into the currency that you want. Yeah, so this is also an interesting solution. And maybe one last solution before I think this is something I also discussed in last time, is a case study in healthcare. And I don't have it in this slide, but it's a case study in healthcare that probably you can explore. And that is, I think it's called MedRec. Yeah, I did share with you last time about how health records, yeah, or healthcare data is really vital to the growth of the healthcare industry. How is pharmaceutical research done? Yeah, how is medical research done? How is patient data treated? Yeah, do you ever give consent for a medical research company to use your data? Do you ever give consent for your hospital to share your data with somebody? Yeah, but several instances off record, our data is shared by institutions that are doing research without our consent. Of course, that data is shared, although with anonymity, but still it is our data. Yeah, and that data, if it belongs to us, then we should be asked how it should be processed and how it should be used. And that's why we are seeing a lot of data laws cropping in, including the, I think it's called the GDPR. The GDPR is the General Data Protection, or is it General Data Privacy law, largely used in the EU. And in Kenya as well, we've implemented a data law. Yeah, so MedRec will make it possible for you to, they'll make it possible for these hospitals to be able to aggregate and be able to manage patient data in a more efficient way. Yeah, and I think there are a number of other solutions that are being worked on that I didn't include in this presentation for consciousness of time, but I would really present. I mean, I would actually even be able to get, and if you go ahead and research, you can be able to get different case studies across different industries. Whether you talk about agriculture, you'll get multiple case studies that are already being used. Yeah, where blockchain is already being used as a solution in different fields, in education, in healthcare, in finances, in a number of other areas. And it is very simple. Yeah. And now lastly is hashing of documentation. I once guided a student from India during a hackathon. I was a technical mentor during that hackathon, and they created a simple solution which gave a hash identity to any certificate or any document that you upload onto that system. So that if you upload, for instance, a land title deed, that platform was giving a hash identity to that land title deed, a unique hash identity that would then you can use to access that document later. Yeah, so it becomes sort of a public registry. Yeah, sort of a public registry where you can be able to, if you have that hash identity, you can be able to access a lot of documents, or be able to access the authentic documents that belong to a certain individual or belong to a certain process. Otherwise, with that, thank you so much for listening. I hope that it was helpful, and I hope that I have added value to you. Okay, which was the first cryptocurrency you invested in? Okay, that is a personal question, But of course, the first cryptocurrency I ever invested in was Bitcoin in a small way, then Ethereum, and a number of others came after. Yeah. So those are cryptocurrencies that I refer to as blue chip cryptocurrencies, just because they have a lot of capitalization. Yeah. There are no conversion charges in blockchain. No, that really depends with which platform you're using. Yeah. So that is based on, if you build an app, you can make it free to convert, as well as you can charge a cost. Yeah. A good example is the Binance platform. If you've ever used Binance funding platform, their P2P platform on the Binance exchange, their conversion there, if you're transacting from the funding account to the fiat and spot account, they do not charge you any fee. Yeah, but many platforms, even on the P2P platforms, actually charge. Yeah, so that really depends on what the app has created or what the person has created. You can charge a fee on that app, as well as you can decide not to charge a fee. We all say crypto is decentralized. The question becomes, with based platforms like Binance and others, how do we still say crypto is decentralized? With based platforms like Binance and others, how do we still say crypto is decentralized? Now, one thing that you have to understand, one, is that not all cryptos are entirely decentralized. Yeah, not all cryptos are entirely decentralized. Now, the cryptocurrency that have shown the highest level of decentralization is Bitcoin. Yeah, and that is sort of blockchain 1.0. Now, Bitcoin is built entirely in a decentralized way. Yeah. And even its proof of work mechanism, or rather its consensus protocol, is entirely decentralized. Now, if we look at Ethereum being a layer 2 blockchain, Ethereum also is decentralized. Although, because we know of its creator, so many people have looked at multiple ways through which Ethereum is actually not decentralized. Yeah, but really, if you look at Ethereum is decentralized because it is. If you look at the consensus protocol, yeah, is there an individual making the decision? Yeah, is the creators or the Ethereum Foundation, are they the people making decisions on transactions? No, rather it is the validators. Yeah, decentralized, independent validators. Yeah, they're the people making decisions as to the transactions within Ethereum. And Ethereum, during the merge, they moved now to what we call from proof of work now to proof of stake. Of course, if you look at a number of weaknesses that they were talking about the Ethereum platform, they said that when we moved to proof of stake, that there were a certain clique of people that had a lot of stake. Therefore, they had a lot of control of the proof of stake mechanism or the proof of stake process. But Ethereum has a number of stages. Yeah, there is the merge. They have a number of phases which they're following towards improving Ethereum to ensure that any possible loopholes are really sealed. But really, by the fact that we have not experienced a major hack on Ethereum as a technology, forget about the DAO hack, on Ethereum in particular, means that Ethereum is actually decentralized. And you've mentioned Binance. The fact that we have not experienced a major hack, yeah, on the Binance smart chain, yeah, means that the Binance smart chain is a decentralized technology because it requires its process of the consensus protocol is as well decentralized. Yeah, and of course you've heard of a number of times where a blockchain was hacked, and sometimes those blockchains are using Binance Smart Chain. I want you to realize that many of them were hacked at what point? At the point where they implemented what we call the bridges, the blockchain bridges, where one blockchain protocol is using a bridge to interact with a totally different blockchain protocol. So sometimes it is these bridges that have been compromised, yeah, because of those a number of vulnerabilities. Then you've also asked, secondly, crypto is having a high level of vulnerability. What strategies out there to secure the platforms and promote better security for end users? Thirdly, how do we manage the growing struggle to use crypto for crime and thereby causing the government to clamp down on it in some countries? Interesting questions. Yeah. How do you promote security? One, it is important that cryptocurrencies choose a properly coded, yeah, and a properly secure consensus protocol, because that's where it all boils down to. How do people reach a consensus? How are decisions made? You have said that your protocol is decentralized. You've removed decision-making from a centralized point, and you've moved it into a decentralized point. How are decisions made? Yeah. Is it by proof of work? That's why we realize that Bitcoin's proof of work has proved to be probably the most secure platform, yeah, during this since its inception. Yeah, so the blockchain protocol, the consensus protocol that you choose to use, ensure that is tamper-proof. Yeah, ensure that it is as much decentralized as possible, because the more decentralized it is, the more secure it becomes. Yeah, the less decentralized it is, because some of them are not 100% decentralized. Some of them are largely decentralized. Yeah, but not 100% decentralized, particularly in the issuance of the coins, whereas individuals still have individual cryptocurrencies have loopholes where somebody can still mint coins, the company can still continue minting the coins. So in such an instance, you do not see really the difference with central bank that can still continue to produce more coins or more currencies and release them into the economy. So those are some of the weaknesses. Then you also talk about the area of crypto crime. Now, crypto for crime is really common, but if you've read a number of articles, or I advise you to read a number of articles from Chain Analysis, yeah, and this is an area that, as a company, Chain Advice as well, we really focus on the area of cryptocurrency forensics, because myself, I am a certified cryptocurrency forensic investigator as well. So in this area, one, the best way for governments to counter crime is to ensure that cryptocurrency wallets are what we call custodial wallets, which means companies that are creating cryptocurrency wallets or are running cryptocurrency wallets should be registered. They should be regulated. Yeah. Second, people who are transacting in cryptocurrency exchanges or cryptocurrency wallets, they should go through a KYC process, which means they should provide KYC data. Yeah. So that if you open a wallet, you should provide us with the data, so that if you involve yourself in a certain crime, we are able to follow up. Yeah. And that happened in the US, where certain individuals really fraudulently conned the bank, yeah, their bank actually, where they used their credit card I think they actually used a different credit card to make a transaction, their credit card to make a transaction on, was it on Binance or Coinbase, yeah? So they bought a number of cryptocurrencies. Then after buying those cryptocurrencies, because the fact that cryptocurrency wallets have a lot of anonymity, it's difficult to really identify who is the owner. After buying, they went to the bank to report that somebody used their cards. Then the bank reversed that money back to them. Yeah. Now remember, it's the bank that lost money. But now involving the feds actually investigated using a number of tools that are already available in this industry. Like a good example is the chain analysis tool called Reactor. Yeah? I think it's called the, I've forgotten the first term, but it is sort of a cryptocurrency investigation tool that makes it possible for them to really track and trace a number of transactions until they get to the person who really transacted made that transaction. So there are a number of ways through which users or governments can reduce crime, use of cryptocurrency for crime. And hackers like it a lot because it is difficult to trace. But as you realize, even in the US, a number of hackers that were paid using cryptocurrencies were traced and were actually clamped down on. So that is a problem that can increasingly be reduced. What is the difference between consensus and mining? Now, consensus, the word consensus means agreement. Yeah. How do we reach a consensus? Yeah. You can also say, how do we reach an agreement? Yeah. So when we say consensus protocol, we simply say an agreement protocol. And a protocol simply is a system. Yeah. So an agreement system. So when you say consensus protocol in a blockchain, what we are saying is when you build your blockchain, for instance, in Bitcoin, yeah, what is the agreement process? How do these independent nodes, how do these computers reach an agreement as to whether a certain transaction should be allowed or not allowed? Yeah. So consensus protocol and mining. Mining is the process, is largely what we call in proof of work, which is a consensus protocol for Bitcoin. Yeah? They use mining. Yeah. So mining in Bitcoin is the process of verifying transactions. It's the process of verifying transactions and adding a block into the blockchain. Yeah. So it is the process really of validating transactions. And how does that mining process happens? It requires computing power. Yeah. So it doesn't require you to go with a huge mining rig, but it really requires some computer. Yeah. So using that computer and using a certain mining gadget, you are able, using that high computing power, to solve difficult mathematical algorithms or mathematical problems that makes it possible then for you to solve that mathematical problem, and the person who solves it the first is the one that gets the reward of Bitcoin. Yeah. And so when you talk about mining, the way we know it is when you go to mine gold is you are digging, and the first person who dig deep enough to get where the gold is gets that gold. So it's the same term here. The first person to solve this mathematical problem in Bitcoin, yeah, using a certain computing power, and the difficulty level is computer control. Yeah, so that the difficult level is in a way that it normally takes, I think about 10 minutes, yeah, for new blocks to be added on the Bitcoin blockchain. Yeah. So during that process, you're doing what we call mining, and that is a consensus protocol. When you decide to start using blockchain to store, say, contracts or IDs, information, so they can't be forged, do you create a blockchain for that purpose? Or you use the existing blockchain already implemented, say for Bitcoin, to store the data that makes your item, ID, contract, verifiable, as official. So what you use in this instance, and I think we will cover it probably in coming sessions, the most used in this case is the Ethereum blockchain, because the Ethereum blockchain has what we call smart contracts. You can't use the Bitcoin blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain is purely for Bitcoin transactions. It does not support smart contracts. Yeah, smart contracts means you can give certain instructions into this blockchain code. Yeah, using blockchain into this blockchain using code. So you can actually code those rules. Yeah, and make this contract. Yeah. Be self-executable. And we talked about this last time. So when I talk about creating a solution, you can use a language like Solidity and build, and there are already a number of, you can already get a number of templates to be able to walk you through on how best that system can work, built on the Ethereum blockchain. So if your question is burning, or of course you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can be able to to respond to your question.